Welcome to r/entitled people, where we share stories from your lives about people who think the rules don't apply to them, and they should get what they want. Thank you, friends, for subscribing to the channel, and for so many likes. And today we have two great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story. Tips of Justice: How a Greedy Bar Girl's Scheme Backfired and Transformed a Pizza Place. The second story. An aggressive boss lost a key employee in an instant. The first story is Steal My Tips? I Rock Your World. I got a doozy of a story for all of you today. One that took place that happened to me 2 years ago with some extra fallout coming up recently. A bit of backstory. I worked in a high-end pizza restaurant as a busboy and a server, not a waiter. This restaurant also had kitchen workers making pizzas, delivery drivers who did prep and made deliveries, and bar girls who took your order when you came in, served you drinks at the bar that you placed your order at before you went and sat down at your seats. At the bar, there are 2 big tip jars that were usually jam-packed on busy nights. Now, you would think the money in that jar would go to everyone, right? Wrong. Company policy back then was that half the money in the tip jars went to the main bar girl for that shift, while the other half went to the main kitchen worker for the shift. Not a penny went to any of the servers. This meant that the closing bar and kitchen people would get an extra $40 or $50 in tips on top of their actual paycheck. Anytime servers got tips was when customers left it on the table, but of course meant any of the servers could snatch it up if they bust the table, and customers leaving a tip at the restaurant was incredibly rare. Anywho, let's meet the cast. Me, Overlord of Pizza, nice customer, NC, bar girl, BG, good manager, GM, and jerk boss, JB, who will show up later. One weekend I was scheduled to work the opening server shift, which I didn't mind. GM was substituting as the manager for the weekend while JB was away for a family vacation. The restaurant was fairly busy Saturday with about a quarter of the tables taken, including a nice family of 4 that included NC sitting in the back of the restaurant. I put on my best customer service skills and serve all tables as best I can. As the people trickle out, NC and her family was leaving. They wanted to give me a tip, but at the time couldn't find me. I was taking a phone order at the time, but as I walked from the back room that was beside the bar, NC found me by accident. Me, have a great day, ma'am. NC, thank you, same with you. I couldn't find you to give you a tip, so I gave it to the nice lady, points at BG, at the bar to give it to you. I internally groaned as I watched NC walk out the door. BG didn't have the typical Karen haircut, but she had the I'm better than you and I know it attitude. After NC walks out the door, I go straight to BG, all while GM is standing nearby drinking water beside her. Me, excuse me, BG, could I get that tip NC gave you? BG, oh that. I'll count you out later. Me, I'd really like it now. Tips for servers are rare. BG, later. Before I can get another word in, the phone rings and she instantly answers it. First time I've seen her actually take one, to avoid talking to me. I look past her and see GM lightly jerk his head as if to say, go bus NC's table. I groan and proceed to get back to work. But all that day and into the dinner shift, I approach BG about the tips I was owed. She would say every time that she would count me out later. But every time I asked her and she responded the same way, I made it a point that GM was standing within earshot. I forgot how many times I asked her for my money, but it was at least 6 times, and she would always give the same response. I was let off for the evening and asked one last time before walking out the door. BG told me that she was very busy with customers. I let it slide and leave for the night. The next day I'm working the same shift, same manager and same bar girl. Right after clocking in and minutes before customers come into the restaurant, I walk up to the empty bar with BG and GM behind it. BG is on her cell phone texting while GM is standing nearby, writing inventory in a binder when the following occurs. Me, hey BG, can I get my tips now? BG, what tips? Me, the tips from last night? Remember that NC gave you money to give me because she couldn't find me? BG, oh, you didn't make any. Sneering before turning back to her phone. Me, last night a customer gives you money that was meant for me and I'd like it. Holding my hand out beside her phone. BG not looking up from her phone. You didn't get any. At this point, GM closes the prep folder he's been writing and approaches. Excuse me, what's going on? BG, he thinks I took tips from him yesterday. Me, I served a woman last night and she wanted to give me a tip but couldn't find me, so she gave my tip to her. As I point to BG. GM, I know all last night he was asking for his tips, and you said that you would count him out later. BG, he didn't get any tips. GM, Was it the lady in the back room? Me. Yeah. I nod my head as I point to the table at the back of the restaurant. She was sitting there with her family. GM. Well, I know for a fact she asked to give a tip to her server but couldn't find him. So why didn't OP get his tips? BG. He didn't get those tips because he doesn't deserve them. GM. Why's that? BG. He didn't deserve them, I do. He's a server. I'm a bar girl. I'm pretty, diet. Yes, she actually said that. GM. OP, go wash dishes or something. BG, let's go into the office. I walk into the dish area and smirk from ear to ear, thinking this was the end of it. How wrong I was. A few days later, JB had come back from his vacation and finds out what happened over the weekend. The man was notorious for writing get-out-of-jail-free cards to people if it was for the good of the company. This has led to some employees thinking since they were essential employees they could get away with stuff they'd certainly be written up for, or fired if it happened under a competent manager. The first day Jerk Boss and I work together, he asks me to step into the office before I can begin my shift for the dinner shift. JB, what happened last weekend? I go into detail on how I served NC, how they left the tip to BG for me because they couldn't find me, how I asked multiple times for the tips I was owed and never got it, and how I confronted her when JB cut me off. JB, I'm afraid I can't excuse what you did. Me, what I did? What about what she did? You gonna excuse her of theft? JB, she did nothing wrong. Half the tips go to her while the other half went to the kitchen worker. You know the rules, OP. Me, yes, I do know the rules. The rule states half the contents of the tip jars go to the main shift's bar girl, and the other half go to the main shift's kitchen worker. But this customer handed the tip to bar girl and told her the tip was for me, and bar girl kept it for herself. JB, either way, I'm not punishing BG and that's fine. Now go back to work or I'll write you up. I leave the office, only to be met with the smug grin of BG standing behind the counter. I walk into the dish area where all the other servers were standing there loitering around. They all knew from how I was pestering BG on Saturday that I was supposed to get tips, and all of them were delighted when they heard GM had pulled BG into the office to lecture her. However, punishment for all employees at our restaurant was decided, and ultimately handed out by JB. Me. I need to make a phone call. Cover me for a few minutes. All the servers nodded as they all guessed what I was about to do. I left the restaurant and went behind the dumpster out back and called GM. I told him he refused to punish BG and threatened to write me up. GM promised to check into everything. The fallout was great. The owner of the franchise got involved and reviewed everything. While I didn't get my tip, the manager now had to give the main server for the shift and the closing dishwasher a portion of the tip jar. It irritated bar girl so much that she wasn't making as much money anymore, she left the company about 3 months later. But of course not without being a royally sized Karen every night I worked with her. The surprising thing is where she went to work next. A bank. No joke. After that, Jerk Boss severely cut my hours so that a new server would get double the days and hours I got, and he rarely ever scheduled me to close. Also, when the minimum wage went up, he didn't think I deserved a raise, despite working for the company for so long. I continued to work there despite this since I had difficulty finding other employment, which is difficult since I have some bad knee, back, and asthma problems. Eventually, Jerk Boss was offered a job at an auto shop, which he was raving had better pay, shorter hours, and was closer to home. Jerk Boss left the company and the new manager who took over is way nicer. All the toxic people who thought they were essential employees and benefited from the countless get-out-of-jail-free cards were upset that they couldn't get away with the BS they had fun doing when Jerk Boss was manager. They all trickled out of the company one by one, and were all replaced by employees who were not only more polite but better at the job. Now you're all thinking this must be where the story ends. Well, there's one last cherry on top. Some time ago, the auto place Jerk Boss suddenly realized the auto shop wasn't as great as it was promised, and soon began asking good manager if he could come back. I laughed when I heard this, since after Jerk Boss left, the pizzeria is booming with profit, and it's now a much nicer place to work. Ah, what a treat to read this story. Like a sweet slice of pizza after a long day. This story is a true masterpiece of workplace drama and poetic justice. First, we have our hero falling into the clutches of a conniving barmaid, who decided that the tip intended for him would suit her better. But don't worry, justice is served on a hot plate. The kind manager steps in and pulls it off, and the barmaid's devious plans crumble like over-dried dough. But wait, the intrigue deepens. Jerk Boss shows up, trying to protect his co-conspirator in petty pranks. He tries to douse our hero's righteous indignation, but in the end the fire only grows hotter. As the plot progresses, we see the downfall of the Toxic Brigade, who used to consider themselves integral employees. They run away like cheese on a hot pizza, leaving behind a more polite and efficient team. And just when you thought the story couldn't get any more cheesy, Jerk Boss tries to return to the pizzeria, only to find that it has transformed into a thriving establishment without him. Oh, what a sweet sense of victory for OP. This story reminds us that in the end, justice is like a perfect pizza. It may take a little time, but it always arrives hot and satisfying. The second story is, my boss yelled at me once, so I quit on the spot and found a better job. The last couple months I've been working as a storekeeper at a small factory. I had a small warehouse that I had to organize regularly, as well as ordering supplies and operating a forklift from time to time. The job was pretty difficult and in a dirty environment, but I kept on as I needed the money, and it's the first stable job that I had. During my time there, I reorganized the whole warehouse physically by myself, and also implemented an inventory management system, app and website, that makes my job way easier and could possibly benefit the factory a lot. The manager that hired me was a good guy, respected me and supported my decisions and ideas, but he was fired by the owners not long ago and replaced temporarily by someone else from the company. For some reason, the new temporary boss was really bothered by this app I've been using. He told me I can't use my third-party apps to work. The app is from a well-known company, that it's a security risk, which is BS, and that I need to manage inventory using the company app, which is a badly designed, cluttered train wreck meant for accounting, not inventory management. After some convincing on my part, he let me keep using it as I explained I've been relying on it for a while and assured him there's no security risks in it. Fast forward to a week ago, and I'm having a little discussion with his assistant about paperwork. She wants me to print some receipts so she can scan them to the computer. I'm trying to explain to her that I can just email them to her as I have everything on the cloud, and I don't have a printer at my station. And here comes the manager through the door, sees us talking and starts aggressively spewing to me that I don't make the rules here, and I need to do as I'm told. I'm trying to keep a calm demeanor. He walks into his office, the assistant sees that my expression is sour and asks me what's wrong. As I'm telling her that I feel like they're dragging me into unneeded bureaucracy, even though I have everything organized for them, the boss slams his door open and starts yelling at me to come into his office at once. He starts shouting at me, telling me I need to know my place, and that I don't make the rules here. I told him that all this yelling is out of place and unnecessary as we're both grown-ups, and he responded by saying only one of us is a grown-up. He then added that he's sick of me causing him trouble, and that soon he's going to make me use his company app, and if I have a problem, the door is right there. Mind you, the factory is missing workers, and I'm one of the key workers there. I thought about it for a second and realized that I don't have to tolerate this kind of behavior even once. I said okay, put my keys and card on his desk and walked out. He seemed in complete shock. I left the factory and immediately started looking for a job, and using the inventory app I implemented as proof for my organizational skills, I just secured a job closer to home, shorter hours, way better working conditions, and higher pay. Yes, I'm still going to be working hard, but it feels good knowing I can control my circumstances to some extent, and I absolutely do not have to tolerate disrespect from anyone. Oh, I love stories like this. This boss apparently thought he was king of the universe, and this warehouse worker was just a pawn on his chessboard. He yelled, threatened, tried to smother this poor guy with his army of bureaucracy and resentment. But what happened? This humble warehouseman decided enough of this nonsense. He threw his keys and map in front of this tyrant and said enough. I can even imagine the boss looking at the departing employee with eyes bulging like a fish and realizing that he had just lost one of his best employees. So, the result is fantastic. This hero immediately found a job closer to home, with better conditions and a higher salary. He showed everyone that he had a lot more power over his life than his former boss thought, and he's probably blushing with gloating envy now. Yes, dear boss, you now have one less problem. No more of this employee, but you still have many more problems, and the main one is your own ego. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Have a good day.